Hello everyone, welcome to the Are You the One episode 1 recap. You can watch this drama on WeTV and also Viki. It's coming soon on Viki, so just update your Viki app in your region. Let's get into it. So, in the first episode, we see bandits attacking Su Jingju's military camp, who is the male lead, and he also catches an arrow that is targeted for him by an assassin. We then see the assassin take off their mask, but we don't see their face. After the theme song plays, the female lead, Lu Miantang, arrives at the Su mansion to be with a man who sells porcelain. So she thinks this guy is her husband, and we learn that he might be a man who sells porcelain from these group of village gossipers. We also learn that the female lead has cranial blockage leading to memory loss, and that a man called Physician Zhao was the one that basically diagnosed her with this condition. She's been married for 3 years, but she only remembers her wedding, and she has somebody called Nanny Lee beside her who's basically telling her all this information. She's also told by Nanny Lee that her husband has gave away half of his fortune to move her and him to a new town for peace and quiet. After she wakes up from basically being severely injured, she sees one of her satchel bags that she held in her hand at her wedding, and she sees it on the male lead. Her actual husband's name, though, is Suju. And the male lead, Su Jingju, the military man, knows he's not actually her husband, but after she calls him honey, he goes along with it. We learn that the female lead is Lu Wen, a bandit's beloved concubine. Then we learn that Lu Wen, the bandit, is the male lead's enemy, and he wants to lure Lu Wen out. And that's why he's pretending like he is the female lead's husband. And Lu Wen and the male lead have been dealing with each other for the past 3 years, just fighting and all that kind of stuff. Physician Zhao is the male lead's best friend who also treated the female lead's condition. And the reason why the deception actually began was because the Physician Zhao called the male lead Suju in front of the female lead, and the female lead remembers her husband's name as Suju, so she's convinced he's her husband, and then he goes along with it because he's trying to lure her supposed husband Lu Wen out by basically pretending he's married to her. We also learned that he's ranked 9th in his family, which is why Physician Zhao called him Suju, even though that's not his actual name. And then the female lead gives him her dowry because she believes he spent a lot of money for her to get her the house, to get her everything they have in the new place and all that kind of stuff. He then leaves to go check on his goods, quote unquote, and she embroidered a cloak for him and she places it on him. We learn she also has martial arts skills because she was part of a transport agency that taught people that worked there martial arts so that they could help transport goods for people and services and packages and things like that. While she's putting on the cloak for him, she basically it looks like she's about to strangle him, and he's the male lead is are you about to strangle me? She's no, my hands are still weak, and then he leaves. Then Miantang, the female lead, goes to the market to buy goods, but she can't afford anything she wants to buy. All the merchants are staring at her, and even her head maid, Nanny Lee, is acting weird. At this point, it's safe to be assumed that all the merchants in this town are actually soldiers, keeping a watch on the concubine, quote-unquote concubine, of a bandit. Nanny Lee finally says to her that her husband doesn't actually have any business right now, and that no shop has been secured. Then the male lead, on his way out of the city, meets some bandits as he's traveling to his carriage. We find out he's Lord Huayang from a military family, a top military general. Huang Yi saves him, and this is when we find all this information out. While that is happening, Miantang is telling the village ladies that her husband is a simple merchant, but this is only what Nanny Lee has told her. This is not her own thoughts and observations. We then learn that Miantang's hand pendants were cut alongside the brain damage from Physician Zhao while he's having a conversation with Su Jingju. And we learned that 3 years ago on her wedding day, she was actually kidnapped and she stayed at Mount Yang with the bandits for 3 years. So the male lead doesn't trust her right now. And they're calling her Lu Wen's concubine because of this, but this might not actually be true. We don't know what she was doing there for 3 years. They're assuming she's a concubine because of misogyny, pretty much. Moving on, Mian Tang goes to meet a lady called Tan, who was her previous maid. She faintly remembers her, that's why they meet up. And she meets up with her while she's telling Nanny Lee to go inquire about some shops. Tan basically tells her that on her wedding day, like, she got... Tan actually tells her that everything was fine and she married Suju safely and all that kind of stuff. And then she's like, oh, but I don't really remember that. And Tan's like, yeah, but that's what happened. And Tan's working with Su Jingju, so she's lying to Mian Tang, even though she was actually Mian Tang's maid, and Mian Tang actually did get kidnapped by bandits on the day of her wedding. We learn from Tan that Mian Tang grew up in an agency, as I said previously, that transported goods and new martial arts and all that kind of stuff for people in the society. And that her father, Magistrate Lu, was thrown into political prison and died, and that her mother's health declined afterwards, and that somebody called Master Qian, which I'm assuming is her brother, but they don't state it in this episode, arranged Mian Tang's marriage. And then we know that the bandits came, but Tan lies to her and tells her this didn't actually happen, so that she believes her husband is actually her husband. Then Mian Tang wants to look for a business because she invested her dowry, so she wants to help her husband find the business with the dowry money that she gives him, basically, for helping her out and getting her a new house. She ends up renting out a shop as a funeral business and then also buying the bond shop next door for very cheap. And Nanny Lee tells all this to the male lead because he actually lives in a different city in his own house, actually. So his servants go and report everything about her to him. And then Mian Tang then meets a guy called Chen Tu, who is a nephew of the garrison manager of the city that she's currently living in. He tries to sexually assault her, but she ends up defending herself using her martial arts. And then at the end of the episode, the male lead finds out this information as well about her nearly being assaulted and then defending herself, and then he asks his servants what else is going on, sort of thing. And the servants say, oh, she walked down the street and everyone's like staring at her all the time. And he's like, why is that? And the servants are like, because she's like really pretty. And he's like, she's really beautiful. And then the episode ends. So definitely very, very comedic. A lot happened in this episode. We were given a lot of information. Let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. If you like my channel, please subscribe. If you like this video, please hit the like button below. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.